Oh, sooner or later, I'm going to get this intro thing right. I'm practicing. It's a learning process here. All right, I'm learning. So, hi everybody, welcome to today's Daily Distinction. I'm really thrilled that you're here. As always, it is have you joining me today. It's a busy day so far. I don't know about you. It feels like it's a little different. First thing this morning. 8 o'clock, hit it even a little bit before 8, and I had a keynote presentation online to technology people from all over the world. We had, I don't know exactly how many, well over 100 people that were watching all over the world the presentation today. So that was pretty cool. And then right after that, we went into a seminar, a 3-hour seminar for those entrepreneurs who are a part of our Ultimate Business Summit group. So today's topic, going to talk to you something I think is even more important than the rights that we have as citizens, and going to be talking about what entrepreneurs are thinking and how they're proceeding in these crazy times that might give us some insight and advice on some of the things that we could all be doing, whether you're an entrepreneur or not. Some of these ideas that they're talking about are perfect regardless of what it is that you do. So we're going to be talking about that. But just want to welcome everybody in here. Thank you for being here. We got folks joining up as we speak. One of the favors I would really appreciate is if you would take a moment, if you're watching right now, and to share this so that the people that follow you will have a chance to join us here on Daily Distinction. Charles, always great to see you, my friend. So if you would share it, that would mean the world, because that's how we grow our viewers. And the folks that follow what's going on here is if you can help us expand the audience. So that would really be greatly appreciated. Just take a moment and share it with everybody right now. Hey, Ron Dottie, so great to see you. Glad that you are here today, and good on you too. I really appreciate it. Hey, before we really get going too, another thing is one of my favorite people in the world. I always love his name because he is one of the people that I met through my work with LPL Financial. I do a lot of speaking for the financial advisors of LPL Financial. Just an incredible first-class organization. It's such a privilege to contribute to their meetings. And he is a financial advisor, and his name is Cash. Yeah, it really is. What a perfect name for a financial advisor. K-A-S-H is how everybody knows him. And I found out here earlier this morning that Cash is really battling with the COVID-19 virus, and his sister is also the same, even in a very difficult situation. So I know that Cash occasionally catches Daily Distinction, and if he's home and watching this, I just want you to know that I'm thinking about you and praying for you. And I'm just so sorry that you have to deal with this incredible thing. I know you're experiencing it in full force, and so please know that you have me and a lot of people that are thinking about you during this challenging time, and sending all good thoughts and healing thoughts your way, my friend. Hey, Sherry Brummett Bridges back in Crothersville, Indiana. So good to see you. Bonnie in the Chicagoland area. Great to see you and everybody. And Richard Mellencamp. Yes. Don't count the virus days. We're going to have good days. So Richard, it's as always, man, it is always great hearing from you. You know, one of the things that happens, I think it's normal. It is to be expected. But one of the things that happens every time that there is any kind of crisis is we do something very normal. We fall back on what we know. I mean, doesn't that seem normal? When something happens, we fall back on what's comfortable and what we know. We know this as parents. No, we do. We know this as parents. You know how I know that? Because how many times does something come out of your mouth and you go, oh my gosh, I just became a mom. Oh my gosh, I just became my dad. If your kids confront you with a challenging situation, one of the things we automatically do is fall back on what do we know? And what do we know? What we know is what we heard when we were kids. So we dispense that information to our own kids. when a crisis happens or when we're confronted with a unique situation, typically what we do is to fall back on what we know. I think that's one of the challenges that we are going to continue to face as we go through this together. And that is, what if what we know isn't what works now? It's kind of interesting when you think is that one of the challenges is that the world is changing so rapidly, and life is changing so rapidly, and perhaps in ways that we are not prepared for. I've told the story, I think it bears repeating, is that in Christopher Columbus's day, the ancient cartographers drew, and that's the map, that's the technical term for map makers, is a cartographer, but the map makers of that time drew the area of the world as it had been discovered at that time with remarkable accuracy. Really incredible how accurate they were in depicting the world. But in the uncharted water, in the area of the world in which they thought no one had ever sailed before, there the map makers drew pictures of dragons. And underneath those dragons on the maps, it literally said, "Beyond this, there be dragons." For you see, even back in Columbus's day and before, when we sailed into uncharted water, it concerned us. We felt threatened. We feel scared. And I think the same thing is true today. It's not change that is upsetting us. It is the unknown that accompanies change. So when a prediction turns out to be inaccurate, or at least we perceive that the model didn't produce the desired result, or when we are faced with more governmental control in our lives, perhaps, of them telling us where we can and can't go and what we can or can't do more than we've ever experienced, it's new, it's uncharted, it's unique, it's something we haven't seen or experienced before. And the typical thing, it's human nature. We've seen it for thousands of years. The typical thing is that we respond by being concerned and frightened and afraid and upset because of the unknown. Look, there's not going to be any quick answers to this. Bill Gates posted, I saw it last night on LinkedIn, a really, really fascinating look at what's going on right now. It's like 17 pages long. It's deep reading. But one of the things I really appreciate is that, we don't know how long it's going to take, and we don't know what else we're going to find out about the virus. So we don't know. And we have lived in a time where it's such certainty, and it's really interesting to be at a point in our lives now where there is such uncertainty. And so it's natural that these dragons are out there. So what happens when people are afraid or scared, concerned? We typically don't respond in the best manner. We get a little over anxious, or we jump onto some guru that promises that they know what it's supposed to be, right? And we can get led down the wrong pathway very easily. We can take our anger and our upset and our surprise out on people who don't deserve it, particularly those within our own homes. We can feel so upset and frustrated and angry, like particularly if we happen to be alone, while other people are out, we think living their lives, when in fact, it's a challenge again. So what do we do? What do we do? Well, first of all, we have to acknowledge the problem. We have to recognize that the problem is there, right? Maybe some of you have, as well as I have had, as Tammy and I have had, and that is a family member who has dealt with an addiction problem. And if you ever have known anybody that's gone to rehab, even if you watch the television show Mom, you've been exposed to it. And one of the first things in rehab is they say you first of all have to acknowledge the problem. You can't solve a problem that you don't acknowledge. You certainly can't solve a problem of which you are unaware. So the first step in all this is to acknowledge the problem. And for many of us, hey, I'm in the boat with you. I mean, for many of us, that problem is this uncertainty that's going on right now is so challenging and disconcerting, difficult. We have to acknowledge that. We have to acknowledge that that's there for us before we can ever proceed to try to get to a better resolution. Some of you have sent me, and I truly appreciate it. And if you haven't seen it, I would certainly suggest that you search for it. There's this great article out, and it talks about, people say, hey, we're all in the same boat. And it says, I thought this was brilliant thinking, brilliant writing. We're not all in the same boat, but we certainly are all in the same storm. Some people are riding out the storm in a big yacht, and others feel like they're riding out this storm in a rowboat. And the boats, the vessels that we have to fight and to encounter the storm are very different, and we need to appreciate that. But even though we're not all in the same boat, we all are in the same storm. So as we go through this together, we have to be looking at how we can be more united instead of more divided. Hey, Randy and I were just on this call together. I was getting ready to talk about. William Bridges wrote, it's not the changes that do us in, it's the transitions. Man. And Randy, you said it when you were a guest here on the show, I believe last week. It's not about the new normal. It's about the new next. It's changed so much. It's going to be about a new normal. And that is such brilliant thinking, Randy. I appreciate that. Not the changes that do us in, it's the transitions. And we got to get through this transition. Oh, cool. Appreciate that, Charles. Hey, here's my buddy Kevin. We can simultaneously be in the same boat, want to sail to different directions. Hey, isn't that happening? We're facing even if we're in different boats, so there's no coordination about it. Seems like it's absolutely crazy. And Jeff, you're right. Maybe we're not even in a yacht or a rowboat. We're in a dinghy. We are being buffeted around by this storm that we are encountering. And I was reminded of something yesterday that I think it would be really great if we could just drop some of the hassles that go on politically. And this is not a political, I would never get on here and talk politics. That is not what this is about. I have my political beliefs. You got your political beliefs. We should respect each other, but you'll never catch me talking about, except here's the exception I'll make to that, is that we need to be a little bit more cordial. We need to be a little bit more willing to listen and to understand and not as adversarial. And what made me think of that was the Pledge of Allegiance, of all things. I was listening to something about the Pledge of Allegiance yesterday, and part of what I was reminded about the Pledge of Allegiance is it begins with I. First word of the Pledge of Allegiance, I. So in other words, it starts with me. It starts with I. That's where everything begins. And part of what we need to remember as Americans is it starts individually. It's got to come from here. And it ends with the word all. So it starts with I, but it ends up being about all. And when we remember that leads us into what we need to be thinking about and what we need to be concerned about as we fight this incredible storm. One of my favorite people in the world is Brian Fanzo. He is just a great guy and an awesome speaker. I love this. There we go. There's our new hashtag, Team Dingy. I love it. That is so cool, Brian. You are so right, Fanzo. That is great. Team Dingy. Hey, Jim, great to see you. Courtney Mark telling you what gets us into trouble is not what we know. It's what we know for sure that just ain't so. Oh, man. That is so wild. Yes, you are so right. And yes, this is absolutely live. And yes, I absolutely reads chat. No, I do. I promise. That is absolutely live. And we are absolutely engaging now. So that's the answer to your question. So if the Pledge of Allegiance starts with I and it ends with all, it makes us think about what's going on in America today. And again, this is not trying to be political, but it is something I think we all need to be reminded of. I see people talking about the violation of their rights. And we can debate whether that's true or not. You have your opinion. I have mine. We see so many people talking about their rights have been violated and frustrated and everything else during this period of time. I wish in our country during this pandemic sea change that we're going through, that people were just as concerned about responsibilities, because there can't be rights without responsibilities. Think what you want about the Second Amendment example, but I don't know any gun owners who don't acknowledge the fact, wherever you are on that position. I mean, we're not, but wherever you are on that, just about every gun owner that I know from my part of the country in Southern Indiana would also talk about the responsibilities that they have as a gun owner. Now, some execute those responsibilities, some don't. We know that there's variance there, but it's that way on everything. It's that way in everything. That regardless of what your rights are, see, there's free speech, but there's also the responsibility not to yell fire in a crowded movie theater. For every right that we have, there also has to be some kind of responsibility that accompanies that. Yet I see so much going on out there about demanding our rights without at the same time focusing on why we need to emphasize our responsibilities. Your perception of what your responsibilities are may be very different from mine. But I think it's important that we play out the string. For example, play out the string. You can disagree with what the government is doing right now. And I'm not saying whether I agree or whether I disagree. That's not the issue. But what gets me is when people say they believe the government is trying to destroy the economy. Okay, let's play that string out. If your elected representatives are successful in their attempt to destroy the economy, it means that you won't reelect them. That doesn't sound very intuitive, does it? If you believe that the government is trampling on your rights, doesn't that mean that the courts will eventually fix this? Because that's what the whole checks and balances thing is. But all I'm asking is play out the string. If you think this, then take it a step or two down the line and try to see. I think that's true in life. I think that's true in whatever we think and whatever that we do. Yeah, Phil, what a great point. The greater the sea of knowledge, the wider the shore of the unknown. I'm going to repeat that. That is so great. The greater the sea of knowledge, the wider the shore of the unknown. And man, we always have to focus on how do we deal with times of change? How do we deal with the unknown? Oh, thanks. I appreciate that, man. How much I appreciate that. That is really terrific. Thank you very much, my friend. Well, here's our challenge. We got to deal with it. And your perception of this may be different. My perception of this, but we got to stay positive. I mean, that's the only thing that we can do. Nobody's opinion gets changed because you're negative. Nobody's concept is enhanced. You call them a name. So let's focus on what we can do. And that leads to the next thing. And Pennington was on here a second ago. Randy Pennington, Larry Wingett, and I held our Ultimate Business Summit online program for the entrepreneurs who are a part of that effort that we do every year. And it was really interesting to hear them because, man, they're on the front lines. I mean, it's everybody from, oh, man, we got one guy that's in the oil business in Canada. Can you imagine how awful that is right now? Because the price of oil is below zero. You're paying people to pick it up. I mean, it's one of the worst businesses right now. We have folks that are in the HVAC business, heating and air conditioning. We have folks that are in landscaping. It's a wide variety of blue collar frontline entrepreneurs, and there were a couple things that were really impressive to me today. Number one is their sincere and deep concern for the people on their team. Some of them have had to furlough people. Some of them have people that have left the job because they don't want to leave the house. Some of them have had people that work for them that have become ill. I mean, all over every scenario you can imagine, they've had it happen. And with every situation, they have a deep and abiding and sincere concern about the people that work for them. I think that's why they're. Isn't it interesting though? You don't join a group like the group that we've got if you don't care about making your business better, making yourself better, making your people better. I mean, it's one of the things that always amazes me at a speech. I'll be speaking to, it'll be a group of salespeople, right? And let's say I'm speaking to a group of salespeople, and it never fails, because if you go to the back row, and the people that don't pay attention are always the people complaining because they're not selling anything. And you go to the front row, and the people that are taking notes like you can't imagine and soaking it up and trying to learn and grow and get better, those are always the best salespeople. Now, we call this a clue. My first meeting of the National Speakers Association. All right. I've never been to a meeting of speakers before. So it's my first meeting of the National Speakers Association. And as I get there, they're just starting a group of breakout sessions. So I'm hustling to, I got the registration, and I'm hustling to get in to get to my first meeting. And I look in this breakout session and sit on the front row, ready to hear the speaker, notepad opened up, pen ready to take notes. There sits Ziegler. And across the hall, sitting in the front row, ready to take notes, listen to the speaker, was Og Mandino. He wrote have you seen the book, The Greatest Salesman in the World? Have you seen the books? He was Michael Jackson's favorite author, among others. His books, there's some that say that he's second to the Bible. He's the best-selling author of all time. He's there sitting, waiting to take notes. Taught me something, a lesson I'll never forget, right? Is that the way that we get better is to continue to learn and continue to grow. If there's any two people in the world that could have said at that particular moment, I don't need to learn anything else about the profession, it's Og Mandino and Zig Ziglar. Yet they were the very ones that were sitting on the front row reading notes. One of the great things I just value it is when I was inducted into the Professional Speaker Hall of Fame. They have the video of the evening. There were several people, or 5 people inducted that night, and they call my name, and it's all a blur. It was such a great night. But when I watched the video later, something that struck me, and I'll never forget when I walked up there, was I got behind the lectern, and you give your little acceptance, kind of like when somebody wins an award at the Oscars or something. And as I walked up, you get a standing ovation. The crowd was standing up, and I looked down, and Zig Ziglar and Og Mandino were standing up clapping for me. And I thought, if there was ever a guy in the wrong spot, it's me right now, because I need to be on the floor clapping for you. But yeah, they showed the kind of people that they are, because they felt it was a responsibility to contribute to their industry. So it gets back to the responsibility thing, and it gets back to the learning thing and the optimism thing. It's what we're all about. It's stronger in no perspective. Isn't that the truth? I haven't thought about this much, but let me tell you my new opinion. I feel really strongly about it. Brian, it's so true. They have strong opinions, and they haven't done what we're talking about playing out the string. Okay, so what does that mean? And then what would happen next? And what would happen next? I'm not even saying you have to play chess, but you got to at least play checkers. Think a couple moves ahead. If this happens, then what? I think 3 of the most powerful words in the English language. That's good. I think 3 of the most powerful words you can say are, and then what? Okay, so we take this action, whatever it might be, whether it's quarantine or ending quarantine, whatever the action is. The 3 most powerful words we can say is, and then what? What happens next? Because we have to continue to play that out and play out the thing to really understand the impact of what we're thinking. Hey, Dave's been a part of our group. Appreciate that, Dave. Great to see you. And yes, it is a great group of folks. And Charles, as you know, it's a group of great people that are a part of our Ultimate Business Summit group. So first of all, a concern about their employees, and secondly, a concern about their customers. But third is, what happens next? How is our business going to change? What happens next? And so part of what we came up with today that I wanted to share with you today. So that was, I wanted to share about responsibilities go with every right. And the second thing I wanted to share with you today was simply this. One of the things we kind of agreed upon, we discussed, and one of the things we kind of got to was instead of anticipating what the answers are going to be, we might be better off to think about what questions should we and will we be asking. In other words, what happens is when we think about what the answers are, we bias it towards ourselves. I got to tell you, I mean, I'm guilty. I'm guilty as charged. An organization isn't as productive as it should be. You need a speaker to come in and talk about productivity. You're not selling what you ought to be selling. You need a sales training course to come in. You're not serving your customers right. You need a speaker to talk about customer service. I'm so biased. It's the old line of, if the tool that you have is a hammer, then every problem looks like a nail. That's me. I am guilty as charged of that, of what I think about that. And I understand that so many times when we're asked for answers, so many times the answer we deliver based on what we have to. When instead, maybe if we've stepped back just a little bit and said to ourselves, so what should the questions be right now? In other words, if we were asking questions like, what will the future be? If we were asking questions like, here's another one for you. If a business was going to compete with me and really take away my customers, what would they be doing right now that I'm not? I repeat that for you. If a competitor came into your marketplace and stole away your customers, what would they be doing to steal your customers away that you aren't currently doing in the marketplace? Now, it's scary because many times many businesses think, oh, they'd cut the price. No, that's not it. That's not why customers change. There's abundance that shows that's not the issue as long as they see differentiation between your competitor. But what would happen? What would they do? And if that's what they could do to steal your customers, why don't you do that now before they get a chance? One of the things we came up with today that I thought was so powerful was simply asking your customers, hey, during this challenging time, we'd just like to know, why do you keep buying from us? Because we want to make certain we keep doing that for you. Why do you buy from us? It'll be some of the most insightful information that you can possibly get. Hey, Laura, one of my favorite people on the planet. I'm scooting the wrong way here. You'll see a yellow book cover right back there, and that is Laura's book. I have two copies. I got one for Tammy and one for me, and it is called Limitless. And Laura, I need to get you to be a guest on this show sometime. I need you to join me. That would be so cool. Brian, same with you. I don't know why I haven't thought of that. But yeah, instead of we ask, how can I help? Well, we should be asking, what needs to happen? What needs to happen to help you? What needs to happen for you? That is so good. You are so good at that. I need to get you on here. That would be so fantastic. Brian, Laura, my friends, Phil. Well, be careful what you ask for, because you're gonna get that. These are two folks I could not recommend more highly to you, Laura and Brian. And Laura, man, your appearances on the Today Show and the book and everything, holy cow, just absolutely fantastic. So we'll make that happen next week. We've got to make that happen with us. And hey, Doug Loudenslager, what can we do to earn more of your business? Great to see you, Doug. Yeah, it is a power question. What can we do to earn? And man, I love that word, earn. So many will ask a question, what can we do so you give us more of your business? And isn't it, the power of language is so important. It gets back to what we talked about before about how if Chevy said everybody driving a Ford's an idiot, not many people driving a Ford would go, you're exactly right, I'm an idiot, and go buy a Chevy. The power of language is so important and something that we all need to be considering. So today, Thank you for joining me. I can't tell you, it's always one of my great privileges and honors, as we've talked about, is that you would take time to be here today, and I really, really, really appreciate that. And we'll be back here again tomorrow. I'm here 7 days a week at noon. But please remember what we talked about today, and that is, focusing on the right questions. Don't be so presumptuous about the answers, but focus on the right questions. The reason for that's what Doug is telling us here. Doug says business is not owed, but earned. And that is absolutely critical. It's absolutely true, and it's absolutely critical. And it's part of what we all need to be focusing on. So I will look forward to seeing you tomorrow, right here, Daily Distinction. And thanks for joining me. I'll see you tomorrow.